Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LTH product briefing. I'm really excited today. We are doing a product briefing with Legora, and I'm joined by Robin Moe, the head of legal engineering at Legora. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you very much, Nikki. Happy to be here.
It's a great time to have you here because, as the industry knows, the company has gone under a quite significant rebranding recently. So, from Leya, as it was previously known, to Legora with a lovely new logo, and in addition to that, new release of features. Can you tell us a little bit about the rebrand itself and some of the new features that have come with it?
Absolutely. Yes. So it came pretty close to our kind of 1 year mark. At least I've been with the company for roughly a year. And in that year, we've grown so quickly. We were about 5 people when I first joined, now closer to 65. And as we've grown so fast, we wanted to make sure that we had a name and a brand that really aligned with where we want to be long term and with our ambitions. And we're now, both me and the CEO, Max, moving over to start our New York office, going to be partnering and working with a lot of AmLaw 200 firms. And we wanted to make sure that we had a brand that was really as bold as our ambitions. And so that's where rebranding came into play. And in Legora, we found a name and a brand that kind of ticked all the boxes and that works in every market that we want to be in as well.
That's wonderful.
And when it comes to the new features, so we were able to make the timing work with the rebranding to also have a lot of new and exciting things that we've been working on behind the scenes for a while. One of them being, which we're really excited about, is our Word plugin that brings a whole another dimension to working with Legora so that you can redline, you can use playbooks, which I'll show you a little bit in a moment, and also our legal research aspects that are now being introduced to the platform with both our kind of agentic research as well as web capabilities.
It's so exciting to see these new features released, especially features that kind of take users outside of the platform and sit where they work already in Word. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some of those. Are you able to show us some of the new features today, Robin?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Why don't we get into the platform and have a look?
Let's do it. All right. Hopefully you can see my screen.
I can.
Great. So here we are at the landing page of Legora, where I have all of my projects. And I mentioned before how we want to think of ourselves as a collaborative kind of workspace using AI in a safe way for lawyers and legal work. So here I have some of my projects, some of which have been shared or that I've shared with my colleagues, some of which that are completely private to me. I can jump into any of these where I have everything that I need to work, but be it all of my documents, some of which I've pulled in from iManage. So we have that integration with iManage where we can pull in and sync any documents, any matters that you would have access to yourself. So we respect the permissions that you would naturally have within iManage or SharePoint, where we also have an integration. So here I have all of my documents. We have all of my colleagues that also have access to this project. And then we have the different capabilities and features which can work on both the internal documents as well as documents on the web or curated legal sources that us at Legora have made available on the platform. We have a few features here, this being a kind of familiar interface to many now, the kind of AI chat. It, of course, has all of the things you would expect from a legal AI chatbot and then some. You can drag in the documents that you want to work with. You can ask questions, you can do tasks with them. You would have source citations, of course, define what high risk AI means. And then on top of that, you have additional things like being able to use reasoning models. So that's an option that you have, again, on the dimensions there of time and quality. If you want just a quick answer, you can keep it toggled off. If you are more on the spectrum of wanting a really high quality answer, you may want to sacrifice a little bit of time to ensure that you're getting as much out of the platform as possible. Then you can toggle on the deep think, which is then using those reasoning models.
Robin, can I just ask, so when you pulled across the document,
Yeah,
it knew to use the document as the source for the answers to the question without you even having to.
exactly.
That's clever.
Exactly. Yeah. So I have all of my documents available here. I could do a search across all of them if I wanted to, but if I already know ahead of time I want to use this document or this folder of documents, then I can just quite simply drag and drop them into where I'm currently working. And that indeed means that Legora knows that this is context that I want to use for whatever questions or tasks that I'm giving. So Legora then analyzes it and figures out that yes, the instruction that I'm giving is related to this document and therefore provides citations and grounds the answer in the contents of the document and provides me these kind of citations that easily navigate me around the document and what's deemed most relevant by Legora, and which also makes it very easy for me to just double check here side by side whether the interpretation is something I agree with and whether these are the kind of most relevant sections within the document.
Interesting. And it seems, I know from our previous discussion that Legora obviously draws upon multiple models and will select the best model for a particular task. So some of that is happening under the hood, but then with the deep think toggle,
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
able as a user to say, actually, I want it in research mode. Is that
Yes.
correct? Great. Okay.
Exactly. We have an agentic behavior, as it's called, meaning depending on how I write the instruction, depending on what documents I've attached, it may route the task to a model or a workflow that is more optimized for that type of task. But I can also, again, have that level of control as a user and just say, I want to make sure that you're using as much kind of firepower as possible to get as much quality out of the response as possible. If I were to just ask to have this summarized as an email, maybe the reasoning models is a little bit overkill. That's something that the platform can do very easily without needing to throw too much compute at it.
That makes sense.
And then I have some of the latest features that I mentioned. As most tools might have these days, you have, of course, your prompt library, some prompts that have been created by us at Legora, but with the option of editing and making that available just within your own organization. So I can share it with individual users or with practice areas or with my entire organization. And again, if I want to tap into knowledge that may not already be in the platform, you can use something like web search, and this will enable Legora to then go out and find relevant information on the internet and will then premiere sources that it deems to be more trustworthy. So we can ask, for instance, how does the Direct Investment Act impact M&A in the Nordics? And it will give me a little warning here to just make sure that I'm not including any confidential information in this specific prompt.
And that's clever.
And so what happens now is that it's using its agentic behavior to generate a research plan. So it generates the most optimal search queries, goes out and fetches relevant sources on the internet, and will then amalgamate and aggregate that into one response for us.
So some of the workflows, even from the Q&A, can be agentic workflows as well.
Right. So here we can see some of these sources coming back are famous law firms, Baker McKenzie, you have NRF.
Can I ask, when you do this type of question with a foundation model like a chat GPT, I feel as though the sources are not necessarily as high quality. Is there something happening where even when it's going out to do a web search, you have trained the model to identify the most high quality sources for a particular question?
Exactly. So there is an entire step here where you can see that it found 42 results, then it only answered based on 10 of them. So it does another layer of kind of evaluating the quality of the sources and the relevancy, and then only deems or adds the citations for those that it considers to be both trustworthy and relevant to the question. So it will try to do that initial filtering for you to discard anything that's not high quality and not relevant either because it's outdated or it's not a trustworthy source.
That's great.
So the web search is one way of searching. We have different ways of searching that I think in the long term as well we'll want to aggregate. So again, using the same logic of creating a research plan, Legora is capable of picking the right sources, whether it's your kind of internal databases that may contain precedents and court cases and previous law firm memos, be it public sources that can be found on the web or the curated legal sources that we've made available on the platform. We also want to give the user the kind of power to control that as well, of course.
And what about the use cases in the platform that go beyond the kind of assistant chatbot type feature?
Yeah. So I think one that I mentioned to you was the one that's more apt for due diligence and e-discovery. So this is the one we call the tabular view. It looks a little bit like an Excel, and it's currently capable of working with up to 100,000 documents at a time. And just to put it in perspective, I think roughly 6 months ago when we launched this, it was capable of working with 25 documents. In a few months, it'll be a million, and then I'm pretty sure the limit will just be removed because there will just be no need for it. So just as an example, I'll pull in 125 different documents. Some are emails, some are articles, logs. This is an example kind of e-discovery use case where we already have some templates built in for different purposes, be it contract review or court case summary. And we also have one for document discovery. So this one pulls out different data points or performs tasks across all these documents. So it pulls out the date, for instance, when the document was authored. It categorizes for us what is the document type. And I've given it a few options here. So I've said you can categorize it as an email, contract, article, or just a catch-all, which is other. And then for each of these columns, you see there's a little label, which is what we see on the high level, as well as a short prompt. So here it just says, what's the type of the document? And then what I've actually done here is just AI generate the prompt. So based on the options that I gave it and the format that I wanted the response to be in, plus the label, it's often able to just deduce what is the best possible prompt here. So to make it as easy as possible to just keep adding new columns here for whatever data you want to extract, we can just have Legora produce that prompt for you. And pretty quickly, within 15, 20 seconds, we have the dates so that we can have our chronology. We have a summary of the document, what language it's in, what type of document it is, and so on. But we can go even further than this. We can just very easily start adding our own columns here. We can ask, for instance, for the relevancy of this document from a kind of evidence perspective. How relevant is this document from an evidence perspective in proving that Eugene Belford was responsible for the security attack? And then just a short sentence there for how I want this answer to be presented. I could use something like our tags to just
Mhm.
say 1 to 3, 3 to 5,
So it's all
and then
completely
6 to 10.
configurable by the user.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
imagine you could, in principle, create a tabular review from scratch where you were each
Yeah,
you were creating, but it's just the templates help you by providing you with that starting point, which is a time saver, I imagine.
exactly. And then just like with prompts, you can save your own templates. So you can start out from scratch, just add the columns you want, save that for future use. And again, share that with any colleagues that might find that relevant as well. So here I've just filtered this now to anything that contains 10. We have a few here, documents that I just found to have a 10 in relevancy. And
Yeah.
we can just quickly now open up and actually see the reasoning behind each of the answers. And those also contain the citations that I showed you in the assistant so that it's able to actually say where exactly is the information within the document and why has it considered this to be a very relevant document. And then we can just double check here why it's considered this document to be so very important. And then in this particular document, we can see that Eugene was the author. And then it very clearly mentions a virus. And this time tomorrow will be $25 million richer. So
It really is a needle in a haystack document.
exactly, exactly. And so very quickly you could go from hundreds of thousands of documents to just getting a quick kind of overview of, okay, which ones are really important for me? And then I can take it from there. And then I can use the other features within the platform to maybe dive deeper into those and helping me out with generating the documents and the claims that I might want to produce.
Robin, can I ask are firms using this for e-discovery and assuming they are, what's the workflow? So they can do the
Hmm.
review here, identify hot docs, relevant documents. Is there then a way for them to easily pull those documents and extract some of the key areas of those documents into a report, or how are they using this in the context of their full workflow?
Yeah. So you can use the different features within the platform for e-discovery and for litigation and so on. I think this one is particularly useful because it can do things that are not just keyword based. You can essentially ask any natural language question you would want about the document and get back an answer that is very uniform. So you could have it by tags or by all of the different formats that we have. You could do verbatim extractions and pull out dates and have just yes, no answers to different questions, and then use all the filters within the platform to either sort or remove documents that are not really relevant. Then you can export that into different formats or even use the assistant to do more aggregated responses across the responses. So the tabular view is really useful for getting one response for each document, but then based on all the relevant documents, maybe you want to do another round of questions to just, okay, now based on all of this, can you just aggregate for us a summary of all the relevant information and a chronology based on that?
Interesting. And I assume that this tabular review is also commonly used for at scale contract review and even due diligence.
Exactly. So you can use it exactly the same. So I can search here for to do our SP review, for example. So here I've just pulled in a few share purchase agreements. We can extract the parties, the different pricing mechanism, what kind of pricing adjustments there are. We can do the kind of more yes, no for different types of clauses. Does it contain indication clause? And I think what's really neat is you can see here on the confidentiality clause is that we have a little warning symbol. So transparency and verifiability is obviously such an important thing when working with AI tools. So we try to build that transparency into the platform where Legora will let you know as a user if it is not able to fully interpret or isn't fully confident in the answer. So
Yeah.
that immediately sticks out as something that you would have to review if you're working with the platform and you see this, which also then gives you a little bit more confidence when it's not adding that symbol, that okay, this is more of a clear-cut answer. But whenever you have that means, okay, there might be conflicting information that it's not able to interpret, or there's some reason for you to take another look at that particular document and that answer.
Robin, does it also, when you're using the QA interface, is it then able to also say, I don't know the answer based on the data that has been provided or to which it's been directed?
Exactly. And that's something that we're building into the agentic legal research and the web search as well. So
Yeah.
particularly on the legal research where we have our curated legal sources, it will know about the legal hierarchy. It will know about what information we're making available to it and where we might still not have full coverage of the legal sources. So it can alert the user saying, I found the core legislation and a couple of court cases, but I'm lacking information from the relevant authorities because that information is not yet available on Legora. So that you might need to complement by either providing to me or reviewing outside of Legora.
That's great. And you mentioned chronologies when you spoke about discovery as well. That's another
Yeah.
case for Legora.
Yes, absolutely. So you can either use the tabular view to extract dates and then sort here, or
Yeah.
you can also use the assistant where we have, again, some pre-created prompts, some of which are for reviewing contracts and so on, but also one that's created for doing timelines or chronologies.
Okay. And I also just wanted to ask about your word plugin because I know that was one of the new features. Sure, people
Yes.
would be interested in seeing how that works.
Yeah. So this is the latest addition to the Legora suite where we now live within the Word environment, making the kind of threshold for a lot of people who work a lot in Word much lower. So it has a few core capabilities. It can answer questions. It can do red lines. You can use playbooks. So I'll quickly take you through a few examples here. In this case, I'm working on a consultancy agreement where I have a few comments that could have been provided by a counterparty or by a partner that's done a review. And you can just very quickly ask Legora to make edits in accordance with comments. I would also have the deep think here. I'll just turn it off in this scenario, just in being mindful of time. And Legora will be able to understand what red lines there already are, as well as any comments, and be able to act based on those. So right now it's reviewing the document, it's taking the comments into consideration, and then it's going to provide us with a few examples or suggestions of potential red lines that you as a user then have the option of applying to the document or dismissing. So we got 9 edits, suggested edits back. We can follow the arrow to see where exactly that edit would be made and a little preview of the red line. We can apply it with or without track changes and making a comment, or we can just say, we'll apply everything here. And Legora understood here that for the simple comment of make this UK governing law, not Sweden, that it had to change also the arbitration body, the arbitration rules, and so on. So we can apply all that, and then Legora will just go through, make the necessary edits. And once we have that fully completed, we can use our DeepL integration to turn that into any language that we want, making then changes or translations both to comments, to the red lines, and to the document in its entirety, whilst also preserving the formatting of the document.
This is great. It really turns it into a complete drafting tool. So you can draft both within the assistant interface as well as in Word. Very clever. And Robin,
Yes.
just before we close out, I think it important for people to know the Legora platform itself is also collaborative. So you can work with your
Yes.
team in the platform.
Exactly. So here we can see that I have my project members. They could be in here working with me in parallel. I would be able to see where they are, what they're doing. They can verify results, just saying these are all reviewed. Then you would have the audit trail of seeing who has done what. They can manually edit things. And again, you would be able to see who has done that specific change. So you can see each other in real time and work together in real time.
Very clever. And Robin, anything else that you want our viewers to know or see about Legora today before we close?
Yes, I think just one final thing, which we've added very recently, is our playbook, where you can build in common playbooks for NDAs, for typical kind of contract reviewing work, where you can build out the rules that you would have in a playbook, the accepted, the non-accepted clauses. And then if there are rules that are being breached within a contract, then Legora would provide you with red line suggestions again on how to mitigate that based on your playbook. So here we can see in this NDA, we have a few rules that are not approved, we have some warnings, and then we have some rules that are in compliance. And then we can have for each rule that's being broken, we can have suggested edits that again do very similar kind of red lines on the document and provide an explanatory comment as well.
That's great. So you can upload your playbooks here. Can you also create playbooks in here?
Yes, so you can create playbooks within the platform, write precisely how that playbook should be followed, and then very shortly we'll be able to, based off of kind of a written playbook, just auto-generate the Legora playbook for you, or even take a look at the latest 10 negotiated contracts and derive a playbook from that.
That's great. Robin, thank you so much for showing us this. I know people were fascinated by the branding change and the new drop of features, so it's really exciting to see some of those today. Thank you very much for joining us. For everyone who is interested in learning a little bit more about Legora or speaking to the team, as you heard from Robin, we'll be shortly based in the US as well. I will put a URL across the bottom of the screen so you'll be able to reach out to the Legora team. But Robin, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Nikki. It was a pleasure.
And thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you next time.